Welcome to Conversations with the Planets with Lori Kaufman and Alicia Cielle Heiser, a podcast that roots the wisdom of the stars into our lived experiences here on Earth and weaves the power of diverse healing modalities together with astrology.
I'm Lori Kaufman, an astrologer, tarot reader, writer, and teacher. I co-lead the Asteroid Special Interest Research Group for NCGR, an astrology organization, and I offer all different sorts of readings, online and in person.
I'm Alicia Cielle Heiser, an astrologer, herbalist, and witch living in Oregon on Kalapuya land, and I offer astrology consultations and teachings aimed at helping you honor your most authentic self and trust your intuition. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Conversations with the Planets. And today we're going to be starting to talk about the tarot associations between the major arcana and astrology and connecting them to the history of how the tarot has been read throughout time and how it's evolved with different associations. And we already have released 2 episodes, one just about the general history about the tarot, and then another about the history of how astrology came to be associated with the tarot. And then this will be a multi-part series where we'll go through the lovers today, right? So
the Chariot.
The Chariot. So we'll go through kind of the first section of the major arcana, and then we'll release future episodes going through the other arcana cards moving forward.
Yeah, I realized it was going to take a long time to do this, even though I'm like very much keeping it short. So we're going to split them into 3. And so we'll do the first third of the cards and then we'll keep going.
Awesome. Well, should we just dig in?
Yeah, let's just dive in.
Okay.
So we're gonna start, with the Magician, card number 1. And we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but so it was originally associated with Aleph, the Hebrew letter.
Well, and can you really quickly explain why we're starting with the Magician and not the Fool?
Sure. Yeah. And we did talk about this in the last episode a little bit, but the Fool was originally placed at the end of the deck. It wasn't until the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that it was, it was given card 0, but like a long time ago, but it was starting to be placed at the beginning rather than the end. So it was originally associated with Saturn in the final card, and then it became actually the first, or card 0. But the Fool has always kind of had the ability to move throughout the entire deck.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. But the Magician is definitely where most of it started, up until like more recent history. And I also like to remind people too, like the Rider-Waite deck, it's only 100 years old. Like it was created in 1909. So like we're not talking about ancient tarot anymore. Like this is like pretty recent history. And so that's something to be remembered as well, is like so many of these ancient decks were found in like the 1400s or the 1500s or 1600s. And then, this deck is like 100 years old. So just like keeping that in mind as we move through these as well.
Great.
Yeah. So if you want to show the one that has the Aleph on it, one more slide, I think. Yes, this one. So they originally used to actually draw the Aleph into the ancient magician cards. So it was actually very important that he had that with him. And it was the card that was associated with the element air, which is now Aleph is associated with Uranus. So I don't know if they ever really associated him with Uranus or really air much, even though Aleph was. They usually you would still find Mercury drawn on him, but there were also often many symbols. So on the card here, you can see Mercury up at the top of the screen. But you can also scroll down,
Yeah.
yeah, right there. You can also see Taurus's symbol right here, and the element for air is like right next to that. So,
Hmm.
and there were usually like triangles hidden all over this card as well in other ones. So, yeah, just keeping that in mind is like sometimes you would see a lot of different symbolism, and some of them made no sense. Like some of them kept that really strict order, and some of them didn't. So I'll point those out as we go too.
Right.
But yeah, the original association was air, and then Uranus, and then Mercury became its standard. And I feel like Mercury makes so much sense
Yes.
for the magician. Like that is one that's like, yeah, he's a little trickster vibe. Yeah, he makes sense.
Well, and what we speak becomes our reality. Like language
Yeah,
brings things into existence, which is a form of magic.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then,
And then yeah, going back to these, so these are some of the other variants of the magician throughout time. So the one at the top that is going to be the Crowley version. The black and white one is the Hermetics deck, and then the Golden Dawn initiation deck is the last one where he's just kind of like, "Nope." Um, and yeah, Mercury is actually always woven through the symbolism with this card. It's actually really interesting because he was always just seen as this like silly little street performer or like street magician or person who would come to bars and entertain people back in the day. Um, and you would like barter with them or they would like work for tips basically. And it just kind of evolved into this like spiritual master because I saw this card as the initiation card. Like the magician was you getting initiated into the Golden Dawn. That's why in the Rider-Waite deck he is wearing the robe. And so, yeah, what I always found really interesting is like they do really keep this Mercury symbolism, even though back then it was often associated with Aleph and air. So you do see the air symbol in some of them as well. But then the Golden Dawn deck is also aligned with the Rider-Waite deck. So you are going to see the right symbol or the same symbol as Rider-Waite on that deck.
and there's that
Yeah,
rider weight again.
and there he is, our little
Awesome.
initiation guy. Cool.
Um, cool. High
Yeah.
Priestess.
High Priestess. So there was a very brief time where she was placed with Mercury. But I don't feel like that ever made sense for her. And you don't really see that travel through, except for sometimes the symbolism on her head or her hat. You will actually see hints of Mercury. Um, in the current variant, so the Rider-Waite deck, you do see her wearing the hat of Isis. But if you look at the Golden Dawn deck right next to it, it does kind of look like she's wearing like Taurus bull horns or
Hmm.
like it is very Mercury energy. Um, yeah, and then the other image I sent you for this one,
Mm,
no, that was it.
okay. Yeah, I think this is what I have for the High Priestess.
Oh, I didn't send you another one.
Hmm, maybe. Let me look.
Oh, well, either way. If I didn't. Yeah, it was originally placed with Mercury, but
Oh,
that one didn't
you
last long.
you did. I'll stop sharing to pull that up, but just keep
Okay, cool.
talking.
No, you're good. Um, It's funny because like even when it was associated with Mercury, you do see moons all over her because she like does have this like very like feminine moon energy that kind of transfers through. That one feels like a pretty obvious association to me.
Okay. Yeah, here. is the other one.
Yeah, there we go. Um, yeah, so even when she was placed with Bet, which is the Hebrew letter associated with Mercury, you don't even see Mercury on her. You do see like little bits and pieces though. Like if you look at the top of her little hat situation, it's no longer related to Isis, and you do start to see that association. And then even though it says Bet as the Hebrew letter over here on the the one closest to, I mean, it's my right. I don't know. The left, maybe, if you're facing the same direction as it. But the one in the top corner with all the symbols, they still even put the moon on it. So it is very interesting that even when they did associate it with Mercury, there was still the moon. But she was always depicted with keys, and she did represent more of a communication energy as well.
Hmm.
So
Well, and Mercury and the moon have a lot of overlapping significations. Like the
they
moon
do.
also is associated with language and communication and learning. And they're the two fastest moving planets in the sky, and they're very, very changeable. And Cancer, Virgo, and Gemini all have, changeable
Yeah.
qualities being ruled by them. So they're
Yeah.
definitely different, but they do overlap.
Yeah. And one of my favorite fun facts actually about the high priestess is that, you know, if you think about it, she never existed, right? The Hierophant or the Pope did, but the Popess, that was never a character, right? She was never actually a person. And so often she was depicted with really white skin to indicate that she didn't exist. And so there was a difference. Yeah, exactly. There was a difference between like the Hierophant being real, a tangible human, an actual teacher, and she represented the subconscious. So it was somebody you didn't actually see or couldn't actually see. And so there was an energy around that where she kind of just existed but didn't. And so there was like a mystery or like ghostness to her. And so
Hmm.
they would paint her skin white to show that she never saw sunlight. She never actually existed. And I just think that's really interesting to almost place that with Mercury because it shows like a duality, almost like the Virgo internal version of Mercury. Like, do I exist or don't I exist? Like that feels very Mercury to me.
Yeah,
That
that
it feels very
does.
moon too, like when
Uh-huh.
you think of the phases,
Especially
but
the dark moon. Yeah, absolutely.
exactly. Yeah. So I think that is an interpretation that can go both ways for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Should we do the Empress?
Yeah. So the Empress, she's another one that I actually could see both ways because she is currently associated with Venus. That's the one you probably know. That's the Rider-Waite. But she was associated with the moon for quite a while. Because she was seen as the mother. So she actually almost makes more sense as the moon in some depictions. And
Hmm.
she was actually shown just like the High Priestess stepping on the moon in the corner, draped in blue. So
Mm,
they actually had very similar and very striking overlaps. And in some of the ancient decks, she was pregnant. She was the mother. So I think that's really interesting too when you start diving into that a little bit deeper.
totally. And this also, in our last episode, talking about kind of the history of how tarot and astrology came to be associated with each other, we were
Hmm.
really talking about how important like drawing your own correspondences and making your own meaning with the
Yes.
tarot is. And for me, like the Empress has such strong Taurus energy.
Hmm.
And the fact that you're saying that she's associated with both the moon and Venus, who are, the
Yes.
domicile and exaltation rulers of Taurus,
Yeah,
just
Taurus.
expands on that for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think like both make sense in this case. Like she's one
Hmm.
of the very rare examples. Which is really interesting that the two feminine archetypes overlapped only on the Empress.
Yeah. That is interesting.
So, like mathematically, very interesting that it happened that way.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
definitely an interesting coincidence. So, I see where they're coming from with a lot of these.
Hmm. Well, and three is such a number of creation and numerology as
Exactly.
well,
Yeah.
which is, the ultimate role of the mothers to bring new life through.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Anything else, or should
Cool.
we move on?
I feel like we can move on. She
Okay.
feels like an obvious.
Yeah, she is pretty obvious.
Yeah, she's a clear one. All right. Yeah, so the Emperor. This one is really interesting to me actually because it was originally placed with Taurus.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, here's another Empress image, actually, before
oh
we
yeah, yeah,
dig
yeah.
into the Emperor. Just more of the associations.
Yeah,
You can
there she is,
pause if you want
our
to look
girl.
at that longer. Hey everyone, we are so excited to announce that we will be teaching two upcoming workshops. One all about the moon phases on September 9th, 2025 at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, that will be recorded and made available for folks to review back to or to listen to if they're unable to attend live. But the moon phases are such an incredible way to learn more about your personality and your emotional and physical needs. They're one of the most potent tools for really understanding yourself within a birth chart. And so we'll be going through all 8 phases of the moon and what it means for whatever moon phase you were born under in the sky, as well as different ritual, magical, and herbal ways to connect with the shifting moon phases in the sky each month. And then we're also teaching a workshop on the secondary progressed moon phases on September 23, 2025 at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And that is an incredible technique for helping you situate yourself within a 28-29 year cycle of growth and decline within your life, and just will help you learn more about how to work with secondary progressions in general, but especially what is your progressed moon phase, which is just so potent for your shifting and modulating needs and personality as you move through life. And so if you're interested in signing up, you can email Lori at lori.kaufman27@gmail.com. Each workshop is $35 individually or $60 if you sign up for both. And we are really excited that we
Yeah.
are starting to offer these workshops. We'll be offering more workshops in the future. So let
Yes.
us know if there's any particular workshop that you would like to see us offering.
Yeah, and of course, feel free to message our Instagram anytime if you have any
Yeah.
questions, if there's anything you want to see from us, an episode or a workshop or anything you want to dive deeper into. Yeah, we're super excited to start offering this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really hope to see some of you guys there.
So the Emperor is something that needs to be unpacked because he was actually kind of his own situation. So they originally had him placed with Taurus and realized Taurus actually didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And in a lot of interpretations of him, they drew him to be standing like the Jupiter symbol. So if you look at
Mm-hmm.
his legs, if you zoom in, it looks like Jupiter. Um, and so the Hebrew letter Dale that it's associated with here is Venus. Um, and so you do see that association. Some people placed him with Taurus, but then they often actually would write Jupiter's symbol instead of Venus's symbol on him. So that made no sense. And then Rider Waite, when they switched it over, put him with Aries. So you probably know him today as Aries. So it's the Emperor is so funny to me because I'm like, how did it go from Venus and Taurus and Aries and just like such a huge ping pong, I think.
Yeah, those are very, very different associations.
Yeah. Yeah. And they like literally just drew Jupiter on there because it looked like his legs were in the like making the form of Jupiter. I also love the Golden Dawn initiation deck. Like, why is he standing on the ram? Like, why he's like using the ram as a footrest in his chair. Like, that's so funny to me. Um, yeah, just weird vibes all around. But then it did get placed with Aries, and that's the traditional signification. But it's almost like they switched around the order of the Hebrew letters and were like, Venus doesn't quite make sense for him, so let's just give him Jupiter, even though that's like making them out of order. Like, once again, the system is made up.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like heavily researched that, which I do talk about more in the class, but like to keep that short, like it was made up, basically.
Yeah. It's like correspondences are always made up, so you can be
Right.
inspired by how other people come upon their correspondences, but you can also make your
Exactly.
own, and the ones that you make from relationship are going to be much more powerful. And I mean, as humans, like evolutionarily, we've invested so much energy into our brains as these meaning making or like organs within our bodies, and like we want to assign meaning and make meaning. And so there's a lot of power in correspondences and accessing our, subconscious mind and connecting us with things that are like bigger and more archetypal than ourselves. So
Mhm.
drawing correspondences and drawing meaning is so important, but one other person's meaning doesn't matter more than your meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I think that's all of the emperor, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to go
Yeah,
into
let's
the
move on to Pape. Papa.
I love in Spanish,
Um,
it's like El Papa, like the potato or the Pope.
yes, the Pope, the Hierophant. Um, yeah, once again, lots to say about him. So originally was placed with Aries and then was moved into Taurus. Yeah, I feel like astrology associations with the Pope in general are always a little bit of a stretch anytime they placed him with a planet or a sign. I actually like almost feel like you could argue that he could go with Mercury because he is like a teacher and supposed to be seen as like wisdom and knowledge. Um or Jupiter. I mean, like, there's so many different, because Jupiter would
Yeah.
have the association of the actual religion side of it.
Yeah.
And that
I
would be like more of a spiritual teacher.
I feel like
I,
Mercury would hate the responsibility and consistency of needing to be the
yeah,
Pope.
that's fair.
I don't
That's
think
fair.
Mercury wants that job. He wants to like
Yeah.
flit off to something else.
Yeah, fair. I just always saw like the communication side of it. I felt like it
Yeah.
could go either of those directions, but yeah, you're right. Mercury would probably hate that. Um, but I also feel like Aries or Taurus don't quite
No,
work
I
either.
do not like Taurus and the Hierophant Association. I That does not make sense to me
Yeah,
personally.
I think it definitely doesn't, but I think it also like kind of does. I see it in the sense of like trying to find a ritual or a routine that works for you
Mhm.
and like Taurus being, like the exaltation of the moon and like using moon phases as like being a way to track your routines or your rituals. I think that could be like a really beautiful way that the Hierophant can play out. Um I also think there's a lot to be said about the Hierophant being a spiritual teacher and like is very stable. Like he's supposed to be the person you go to when you need these things.
Yes.
He also like did used to signify things like marriage because he was the one who married the people, or like helping the people come together. So
And would
that Venus
just
energy comes through.
as an aside, it's so interesting to think of like the power that the Catholic Church held over medieval
Correct.
Europe and like,
Yes.
the whole like British split from the Catholic Church and the
Yes.
formation of the like Anglican Church. But it's like the Pope would legitimize marriages, and then if your marriage couldn't produce heirs, you couldn't continue your royal line. So the Pope carried so much power as to like yes, there are kings of their respective lands, but if your marriage isn't legitimate and you don't produce legitimate heirs within that, then you don't have a legacy. So it's like the Catholic Church held, and the Pope in particular, held so much power with that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
For sure. Yeah, so here he is. Yeah, he was often placed with the element earth as well. Which I also like feel like makes a lot of sense, honestly. Um, and then yeah, like there's Aleph, the Hebrew letter. So it's like, why is that there? And sometimes he would be seen with air too. So I don't know. The symbolism was always something that was like a little bit like open-ended for him.
mhm. Do you want to talk a little about how it went from the Pope to the Hierophant?
Um, yeah, I can. So the Hierophant was actually one of the more ancient names, and then it lost that, and they started using when tarot became archetypal, rather than like familial, they started using the Pope because he was a character. He was an archetype. He was somebody that actually existed in that world that existed back then. And so they saw him as, here's our Pope. He had the keys of St. Peter in front of him. Like he was usually depicted like as that religious leader. Um, the Hierophant is actually my favorite character to teach. Because there's so many like weird fun facts throughout history when like, oh my God, I could talk about this card for an entire 3 hours. Well, because the Catholic Church at one point thought it was sacrilege for the tarot to have a Pope card, especially when it was becoming something that was being used for more divination and it was starting to be actually used as something other than just a card game. And even when it was just a card game, they didn't like that there was a Pope and a devil card because
Mm,
they didn't like that both of those things existed together. And so there were many times throughout history where it was actually illegal or you could like get fully punished for having a deck that had the Pope card. So there were a couple different versions, and when we go through that in the class too, I like showed all of the progressions of like how it changed. But they actually used Jupiter and Juno as one of the most popular associations when they, or substitutions, I guess is a better word, when they had to take out the Pope and the Popess. Um, and so like that was something you saw for a long time. And then Rider Waite Smith deck came through and they changed the name back to the Hierophant because they liked it as, it kind of took out the religion. Because when you hear Pope, you think Catholic.
mhm.
Um, but when you hear Hierophant, you don't. So it
Yeah.
kind of like took the religion side of it out, but still kind of leaves that little bit of hints that it could be seen that way.
It's more like an archetypal association with
Exactly.
religion rather than a specific institution of the Catholic Church.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It became less institutionalized and more like, yeah, an archetype. And
Fascinating.
also became more of a teacher, you know,
Yeah.
because it's like you don't really know what he's preaching anymore because he's not the Pope. So it's not a religious preaching.
Hmm.
Or maybe it is. Who knows?
Yeah. That's where in our last episode we were talking about how the card can present itself in so many different ways. So
Yeah.
in one reading, it might be a very religious card or very clearly tied to religion. And another reading, it might be more about the teaching or just the importance of a consistent spiritual practice separate from religion. So it's a living archetype. I mean, that's the power of archetypes is there's, so many different like faces of the die, right? And like the whole die
Yeah.
together can form up the archetype, but maybe right now you're looking at like one face of it, and then another point you're looking at another face, but then they make up the whole.
Yeah.
Great. The
Yeah.
lovers.
The Lovers. Yeah. Um, so the Lovers was originally placed, with Taurus as well. So that's an interesting one. Um, the Lovers, yeah, I this is another card that I just have so much to say with. Yeah, there's the little Taurus bull over in the corner there. Um, yeah, oh my God. I never even know how to talk about the Lovers without like giving a 3 hour lecture. There is so much in the history of it. And yeah, there's just so much to be said about it. Taurus, though, is an interesting choice, I feel like, for the Lovers, especially because traditionally you would often see it depicted with two women. And there were
Hmm.
always three people on the lover card because it was about choice. It was never about love until, society started to become obsessed with the idea of romantic love. And that is when the lovers dropped the third person and started to become way more, about soulmates. So that's when like people started to take that card that way. Um, but I still think it's really interesting that like taking away the Taurus association during that shift and turning it to Gemini makes it even more obvious. I feel like that it's about choice, but um, it has the depiction of Adam and Eve drawn on it, and so there is very clearly this like underlying choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, then their initiation deck is a very interesting one.
Yeah, you can really see that Adam and Eve imagery right there with like the
Yes.
snake and the
Hmm.
pomegranates and all of that.
Yeah. The apples.
And the nudity.
Hmm. The burning bush behind him. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's much. And I've always thought it was interesting too that there's that mountain in between them because it like really shows that there's a choice. It shows that there's an up and down.
Hmm.
Um, I forget the story in the Greek myth. I could probably pull that up real quick. Yeah, there's a whole story drawn out there. Oh yeah, that's Perseus rescuing Andromeda
Mm.
on the rock over there. So that
Wait,
was
which one?
often
The one on the
depicted.
right?
Actually, I think both of them.
Both of them are Perseus. Well, and then that's
Yes.
interesting, like, because he beheads Medusa, but
Right.
the way they're depicted here is like just the snakes, and Medusa's like not
Yes,
even present. It's just her hair.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's like lingering, which is super interesting. And then this is when Gemini started to get the association. It's interesting that there's a little Sagittarius symbol on here too. So I definitely
Mm.
think they keep it a little open-minded. Um, but yeah, yeah, it's definitely interesting. And that Taurus association was supposed to add more of like a love and Venus
Yeah.
energy to it.
Yeah. I can see where that would come from.
Yeah. Yeah, that one felt like it made sense too.
A little more than Gemini. I feel like
For sure, actually.
Gemini just wants to flirt. Like they don't
Right,
want
but
like
that's kind of the point of the card. It's like, who are you
mhm.
choosing? What are you choosing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Anything
Yeah.
else about the lovers?
No, I think that's good.
Great.
I mean, so much else about the lovers, but I'll keep it
Yes.
there. Um, yeah, that one's definitely one of my favorites to talk about. The Chariot, if you listened to the last episode we did on tarot and astrology combined, I did talk about this one a little bit. Because it was originally placed with Mars and it was seen as a very martial um character who chose to go off
Mm.
to war. So actually that's another big piece of the lovers coming before it is he's choosing between love and glory. And in this sense, he chose victory over love. So he left the
Mm.
woman at home and he chose to be the chariot. He chose to continue on the path. And that's where the chariot comes in. And it was showing the Mars side of that. Um, But then it started to get associated with Gemini, which is why they have the yin and yang little twin characters down at the bottom, where the black one always looks angry at the white one. So there's like a lightness and a shadow side that they're supposed to represent, like the yin yang, black, white. Um, but then obviously it ended up getting associated with Cancer. They started drawing the little moons on the little corners of his outfit, and they started putting a lot of symbolism about phases and just being able to carry on and take your home anywhere and go wherever you wanted to go. Because I guess like themes of these giant parades used to happen all the time to give victory to these characters who went to fight in war, and we don't have those parades anymore. So these chariots are not something that you just like see in your day-to-day life anymore like you used to.
No, yeah. Is that's and then
That's
I
it.
guess I have the Rider-Waite chariot as well,
Yes.
which is very connected.
Yeah. Yeah, and they put a lot more moon or like nighttime symbolism
Hmm.
into the Rider-Waite at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, the Cancer Chariot Association has always made sense because the moon
Yeah,
is such a traveler.
right.
And she represents like the queen or the celestial queen, and people
Yeah.
with royalty would be able to travel with like
Hmm.
chariot protection a lot more than common
Hmm.
people.
Yeah, yeah. Which like is so different from the original like parade meaning that they had in the card, but yet
Mm,
so like symbolic of being so similar. So interesting.
yeah. Well, and speaking of the moon, it's a great time to share
Yeah. Oh,
that
that's
we're doing
perfect.
these moon phases workshops. So
Yeah.
we just did the live version of this moon phases workshop, but we do have recordings available. So if you're still interested in it, you can reach out to Lori to get a copy of the recording at lori.kaufman27@gmail.com.
Yep.
And then we have an upcoming progressed moon phases workshop that is live on September 23rd at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern. And we will also be doing recordings of that for folks who are unable to attend live. And so all the info for signing up is here with just emailing Lori. It's $35 for one of the workshops or $60 if you sign up for both. And yeah, we're just really excited to be offering these and really hope to see some of you guys in the upcoming live one and be able to share the recording of the moon phases one with some of you guys as well. Yeah, and so thanks everyone for tuning in. We just comment below how you make sense out of the different associations and what makes the most sense for you and how you interact with astrology and tarot, because we love hearing from you guys. And we'll be coming out with 2 more episodes talking about the rest of the major arcana in future weeks. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any personal stories to share or thoughts and reflections about what we discussed in this episode, please comment down below or reach out to us on Instagram. And please come follow us on Instagram at ConversationsWPlanets, where we share forecasts and updates about the astrological movements happening in the sky, as well as updates about our episodes. The link to our Instagram is in the show notes down below.